where do you stand on kind of a curious moves from the committee in week 2 of their rankings?
Yeah, it was a weird Tuesday night, and now Wednesday you've got SEC World up in pitchforks and everything. They're very upset that Georgia's not out in the field. But, should Georgia be ahead of Miami? Maybe, sure. But, it wouldn't matter. Georgia still wouldn't be in the field. I mean, they have to be behind Alabama and Ole Miss because they lost to them. They have 2 losses. And, yes, they beat Texas, and, yes, they blew out Clemson. But they're also not playing well. They got destroyed by Ole Miss. They barely beat Kentucky. They had a fourth-quarter battle with Florida. This is not a Georgia team that is passing the eye test right now. We know the ceiling is really high, but the floor is a lot lower than it's been for a very long time. And now you've got people who work for the SEC network saying we have to expand the playoff in 2026 because there's too much parity and everything.
God, please,
we went from there's too many teams to 2 weeks into the rankings, we have to expand it. We have to get more SEC teams. Look at the parity. Look how deep this conference is, which we knew we were going to get to. I just didn't think we would get to it when we already have 4 SEC teams in the field. Now it's we got to get a 5th in there because it's Georgia. The whole point of this was that those teams at 10, 11, 12, they have flaws in the resume. They have holes. And if they miss out, well, too bad. You had your opportunity. But because Georgia has the number 1 strength of schedule, they're kind of creating this debate, which I don't really like. It's also not going to matter yet because if they lose to Tennessee anyway, they're out. If they beat Tennessee, then they're back in the picture and we can have this conversation because there's a really good chance you have a bunch of 10-2 SEC teams. That could cause problems for teams like Indiana. As for why BYU and Indiana jumped Tennessee, I have no idea. I mean, we thought they should have the week before.
Yeah,
I have BYU ahead in my rankings, but you can't have BYU barely escape Utah, Indiana hang on to beat Michigan, and then they jump Tennessee, who had no problem in Mississippi State. It feels like the public reaction caused the committee to change things with BYU and Indiana, and I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, what are BYU and Indiana's top wins compared to Tennessee's top win? The Alabama win is looking better now. I mean, they just beat the hell out of LSU in Death Valley. So, more to your point, Chris, I was really confused by that. And I was just looking at the aspect of who have they beat. I mean, granted, these teams have taken care of business when the opportunity presented itself. But for Indiana, you beat Michigan, not really impressed. Again, BYU just beat a Cam Risingless Utah. Again, not that impressed. So
BYU's got wins. BYU's got wins. Indiana doesn't. There is a split between them. I
still think we're losing the forest for the trees on the playoff discussion, and maybe it's just me, but here's how I look at it. Okay, the 12-team playoff. First of all, I think it's been too many. I was more of an 8 person, but the whole point of the playoff is to get everybody that's got a legitimate claim to being the best team in the country in the field. And then anybody else who gets in, you should feel fortunate. You get a second chance. You get a chance to play for it. But we should have had the 10 seed instead of the 9 seed, the 11 seed, the 12 seed. The 13th team. I don't care. I do not care. If you're arguing about seeding or you're arguing about being in the field, you don't have a case as the best team in the country. I want all the teams that have a case as the best team in the country playing, and then a handful of other teams to fill out the bracket that we made that we have to have 12 teams, okay? I do not care about any of these arguments from teams that have 2 losses. If you lost by 18 points to Ole Miss, I mean, your claim to being, we deserve a chance to play for the national championship is pretty thin. It's pretty thin, and I just don't. I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it.
It sounds a lot like what I said about Notre Dame after they lost to NIU, by the way. And everybody was up in arms when I said that. I just want to let that be known. People were pissed as hell with me because I said Notre Dame doesn't deserve to be in that same conversation after just getting not blown out, but getting beat at home by NIU. I don't know.
They played their way back into it. Shout out to the Irish.
If you're Indiana, if you're Notre Dame, if you're BYU, you want Tennessee to win this game. You want Georgia to get that third loss. You need to clear out some space because if you have a bunch of 2-loss SEC teams in there and Indiana goes and gets blown out by Ohio State, then it's going to be a difficult conversation to have. So, yes, there's less top-heavy talent in the sport. There's less elite teams. Maybe none compared to years prior. And it's creating a real logjam at the bottom of these rankings.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. I never thought we would have 8 SEC and Big Ten teams in the field, and yet we'd still have SEC people saying more should be in. Like we're going to have that conversation after this year.
Whoever you are, whatever your team is, I don't even care. You do not want to get to Selection Sunday and start being compared 1-to-1 with Alabama or Georgia. You do not want that. The committee, I can tell you which way they're going to go if it's really close. You do not want that. So, yes, whoever you're a fan of, if you're sniffing the playoff, you better be rooting hard for Tennessee on Saturday.